Welcome back to the Peruvian Waltz podcast. I'm your host, Brian Birdie, and I'm joining you here from a very, well, I was going to say sunny, but that's only my dream. In the winter, we don't get sun here in Lima, unfortunately. And I know it looks like I'm getting sun. It's all, the sky is all gray. That's why it's called Lima la Gris. And it's right now, but I have no curtains, so unfortunately, you're going to have to just stare at me like this the entire pod. And yeah, I'm joined by Christopher Viscardo, a very loyal Exitosa listener. How are you, Christopher?
As to regarding the Exitosa comment, no comments for you, Brian. He's let me know these last few days that I need to become an Exitosa listener, obviously. So, I mean, I just out of curiosity, Brian, what is the temperature right now in Lima?
Should be 16, 15 degrees, something like that.
Ooh,
I haven't checked.
jeez.
Oh, check Warren's news, Peter.
It's
Peter,
like,
how are you? In Toronto.
anyways.
Yes, I'm doing well. 15 degrees. That is parka weather for Peru. So everybody stay warm out there because it's really really bad in Lima right now. Here it's actually kind of cool down here too. I think it's only like 18 degrees here, which is quite strange for summertime. So yeah, weird weather everywhere.
It's 18 degrees. I just checked. So at night it gets really cold though because it's a desert technically, and deserts get really cold at night if you didn't know. So like I'm sure in the Sahara it's very cold as well at night.
Yes.
The Atacama as well. This is technically the Atacama, but like it's like the more northern part of it because we don't get any rain at all. As of course, I think more inland in Atacama you get less rain though than we do. So it's yeah, we get clouds but we don't get rain. Let's put it that way. We get very little rain.
Mm-hmm.
So let's begin this pod. This is going to be a special pod. We usually record on Tuesdays at 8, 9 p.m. Peru time. I started making an exception because we recorded the news. The news of Paulo Guerrero came out after we made the podcast on Wednesday. It came out literally the morning after Christopher ranted on Exitosa after we sided the Paulo Guerrero questions. And we can see we're happy at the very least. We're very very happy that he's here. But there does spring a few questions about a few things. Of course, firstly, how controversial will those be? Now, many people who are informed know that common sense has prevailed here. But at the same time, you gotta wonder why would they put the ban on hold? Why didn't they just take it off completely? That kind of makes things a bit suspicious, in my opinion. I'll let Peter start with this.
Well, first of all, they're investigating it. That's why the ban is put on hold. It's kind of like the whole, they don't sentence someone because they're innocent until proven guilty. So the Swiss court is clearly taking the same approach with this. Now, obviously, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it in terms of after the World Cup and what happens with Paolo when it comes to the actual ban. But that is the main reason why. And I mean, you're right, Brian. Common sense did prevail here. He deserved to go to the World Cup. It was ridiculous that he was banned again after serving 6 months before that for reasons that were also the same. And I think 6 months was even a little bit too excessive. Look, even if he ends up having to serve the full ban and will be out until January after the World Cup, at least he got to go. And if his career happens to, decline or come to an end, at least he can go out on that high saying that, look, I lived out my childhood dream. I played at a World Cup. It didn't end the way I wanted to, but, I can't really complain too much about this because at least I got to do that.
Of course, Christopher, go over his thoughts before I go back in this.
Well, let's remember that technically the final CAS decision is not out yet. What the document, the press release that they had in which they gave Paolo an extra 14 months or an extra 8 months because he already served 6, was really just kind of a reality when it comes to these legal cases. The decisions can be 20 to 30 pages, right? And these decisions are usually the logic that the judges use to come up with a sentencing based on, quoting all the facts of the case and all, the legal precedent and all the rules and the laws that are part of this case. And that decision has not been published by CAS, by CAS. And so therefore, the Swiss court cannot come in and say, like Peter was saying, and decide to get rid of the ban altogether, because they need to have that document first, and from there do their own investigation and go through their own logic. Honestly, we just need to consider ourselves lucky, because in the United States, a private arbitration process like the one that Paolo went through, because CAS is private arbitration, it's not a government court. It's usually something that you cannot appeal to the government, right? It is final. And so therefore, blessed be the European Union and whatever laws they have over there that allow you to appeal to a government court. And so therefore, I think I found it really interesting that the judge was so willing to take into consideration, his Paolo's age and his career. So those are things that are usually not taken into consideration in our modern law system, where we very much just stick to the rules and stick to the laws and to the letter of the law. And to me, it actually felt very much like almost like a mercy case. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity that he's having. And so therefore, considering that we don't have all the documents, all of that, I'm gonna make a ruling based on very common sense. What does your heart tell you, and not so much on all the rules that would be applied in different cases. So I said on my Twitter that we had justice, that we had divine justice, whether you believe in a higher power or not. Honestly, it's just one of many miracles that have happened for Peru to be able to make it to this World Cup.
Yeah, no, as for some of my thoughts on it, basically, I think that Paolo definitely did deserve to play in the World Cup. I don't think he was. I think the ban was too harsh. I also think he did get away with it a little bit, because I look at other bans, like I look at Jose Angulo, who was banned for 4 years. I don't know what the situation was there, but that's ridiculous. 4 years is way too long, no matter the case. It's basically saying, oh, you do drugs, oh, you can't play football. Sorry, it's silly. But there's got to be some way they change these anti-doping laws regardless, because, I'm totally fine with Guerrero playing the World Cup. I'm not complaining in any sense of the way. But you got to think how ridiculous it is, from having the ban initially to shortening it, to make it longer, and then to put it on hold. That's not a good example for an outsider. For an outsider, I'm not going to defend I'm not going to defend WADA or anything. I'm not going to defend any of those. But it is kind of a silly process in general, and something has to be changed. So I think Guerrero is innocent, but I just think the whole process was very silly.
It is, and that's actually why FIFPro has actually pushed to get these bans, not to change them per se or to change the criteria. They're actually pushing to remove social drugs completely from the anti-doping laws. Because when you think about it, if you, and I'm using this clearly as an example because, leagues in North America deal with this, like the NFL and the NBA, smoking marijuana gets you a year-long ban. Punching a woman gets you a fine and a game or two suspension. Just think about the drastic differences with that. You smoke a little bit of weed and you're punished by missing an entire season. And if you do it again, you are punished, I think, for 2 years or 4 years, something like that. It's ridiculous. Let's say Paolo, and I guess, we could use the Diego Maradona case as well. If you legitimately consume cocaine, what really is the big deal, right? You have drugs that, all drugs are legal in Portugal, all social drugs. We see that drug usage has gone down completely in Portugal since they implemented that ban. It's this stigma with social drugs and the metabolites is quite ridiculous, especially when literally in every case, at least for the most part, athletes do not take social drugs to enhance their performance. If they want to enhance their performance, they're going to take legitimate PEDs to make sure that, they can run faster or longer or they're stronger, whatever the case happens to be. If they're let's be honest, drinking coca tea, you're not looking to, run for a full 90 minutes, right? You're just looking to cure a cold. You're looking to adapt to the altitude, whatever the case happens to be. I myself, when I get to Lima, I get car sick. and the drive from the airport to my family's house is quite long. So when I get there, I drink coca tea to settle my stomach and to remove my lightheadedness, and it works every time. That's why I drink it. And I'm sure Paolo took it because he obviously was experiencing flu-like symptoms and wanted to get over it quickly. Mind you, it was a different tea, but it had remnants of the coca tea in it. But that's just a perfect example. And that's why Fifth Pro is looking to kind of change that criteria to make sure that another player doesn't suffer like this.
Not only that, but coca tea is part of our Andean culture. I mean, like, I get it that it might be kind of hard for some to understand, but Native Americans have peyote and like Polynesians have kava or whatever, which are other quote unquote sketchy substances. We have coca leaves. We've been using that for hundreds and hundreds of years, So it's like it is a little bit ignorant of others to think that we're trying to drink coca tea, for enhancement purposes. Like, no, it's just every day. Like, you're sitting with the family and you're drinking tea, and it might be coca tea, it might be chamomile, it might be some other kind of tea.
Yeah.
Let's see. Anyways, come back. I have something else that I had in mind that I just forgot about. But
okay, so I think that this is definitely common sense that has prevailed. It can be suspicious for some. But like Peter said, there is being investigated. I did also read about that. I just wasn't exactly sure how the situation was going to unfold. So I think that it's good to get another World Cup. Go on, Christopher.
So the only other thing that I wanted to point out is that I really do hope that these laws change, like Peter was saying. I remember the vice president of WADA actually came on the Peruvian media talking about how these rules were made in the first place. And these rules are actually done democratically by all the members of WADA, right? WADA comes up with them, and then they need to be approved by each one of the federations of the different sports, not just soccer, because WADA also takes on, like volleyball and all the other Olympic sports. WADA is very involved with that too. But it's funny that Fifth Pro is not involved in making these rules. And it's a very, very political science concept that you cannot be punished for rules that you did not have a say in, right? I mean, that's part of society in large. So it doesn't make sense that the federations get to weigh in on these rules, but that the syndicate of players, right, the players' union, who are the ones that are going to be affected the most by these rules, did not get a say. So it looks like there is, because of this Paulo Guerrero case, there is enough conscientious, I don't know. Well, there's enough of the people are talking about it. Let's put it that way. People are talking about it, and let's hope that there's an effort from WADA to amend the rules as soon as possible, so that things like this do not have to happen to other players in the future.
All right, so one other thing I want to talk about, and now that we're done with this section of it, Guido Navarro. Now, a lot of people are saying he's flipped the coin and he guessed, which I guess is kind of true. I mean, I don't think he deserves so much credit as he's getting, because, I mean, I do kind of think he just kind of guessed, like he's kind of like won the lottery, and he just guessed that Guerrero was going to play the World Cup. I also think he wanted to put on pressure on TAS for this to happen, because think about this way. Clarín did the same thing with the Bolivia points. They tried to put pressure on TAS. It did not work in their favor, but it was very suspicious that only they reported it, or only Argentinian media reported that. And I think personally that he was just trying to put pressure on. And I still don't think I still agree with what Christopher said in the last part. I have no disagreements with that, but at the same time, I guess he does deserve a little bit of credit, even if he had no impact on the final result. It's definitely an interesting case.
See, I'm on the opposite spectrum of that, because this was a legal case. Like, this was the Swiss federal court. So if you're going to put information like that out there, you have to be 100% sure. So I think that he took due diligence, and considering what Christopher mentioned on the last podcast, that Exitoso was sued by the FA and all this, he had to be extra careful. So I think he definitely had a couple of connections that gave him this information. Now, it was definitely a huge risk. I will agree with that. And maybe in some cases, he does get lucky because, listen, information can be, passed around and it gets skewed a different way. It happens, right? People who work in the media are well aware of this. So I think on both ends, he definitely deserves credit for it because I think he would have been equally ripped apart if he got this wrong. So I think we got to give credit where credit is due regardless, but there definitely was an element of chance with this, like it is with any piece of information that a journalist happens to receive.
Christopher, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, okay, he got it right. Wow. All right, let's move on with our lives. Okay, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with Peter that he must have heard something somewhere, and he felt like that was pretty much, there was a good chance that that information was true. But honestly, though, Peruvian journalism has been so poor. I mean, we're seeing a different take on this since we qualified for the World Cup. But honestly, I personally grew up with the journalism that just destroyed the national team every single game, right? In fact, they pointed out that Tigrillo, the day that Peru plays Ecuador in Lima, that there's only 25,000 fans at the stadium, right? Where it's basically empty. He actually says, welcome to this funeral, with a picture of the stadium, of an empty stadium. So obviously he too was part of the problem. I'm gonna put a link. It's a video in Spanish, but it's a YouTuber that actually did a whole 20-minute documentary on the quality of Peruvian journalism, and especially soccer journalism in Peru, and how unfortunate it is that we have such poor journalism when we had a history of great journalists like Pocho Rospigliosi and other people that are historically known for being supporters of the national team and who had a positive attitude and who actually did journalistic investigations and reports, compared to whatever it is that we have now that's just the Twitter rants and stuff like that. So I'm going to give him credit. I get that. That still doesn't change that the 85% of the stuff that he says is crap. He just happens to be within that 15% of the stuff that he got it right that one time. And so, yeah, I mean, I'll swallow my pride. I get it. I ranted pretty badly about him, but hey, he took a gamble, and this particular time, he won. But as to what Brian said a second ago about putting some pressure on court, I mean, I understand. You think that put pressure on them, yes, because Tigrillo has 2 million followers on Twitter or something. It's no, I honestly don't think so. I think that these courts, especially in developed countries, it's almost impossible to try to influence them. It's like telling me that I can go make a picket line in front of the Supreme Court of the United States and get them to change whatever laws I like. It's those courts are above the media, above public opinion, and so but hey, but who knows? I mean, somehow he got the information right.
Yeah, somehow is right. That is very good. So I guess that's enough of the legal matters. I guess we can talk about some football now. First of all, before we talk about the Saudi Arabia game, Peter put out a poll here. Who should replace? Who should Paulo replace? Peter, why don't you read out the poll suggestions first, and then we read out our own opinions.
Sure. So there was a lot of discussion, just kind of getting a bit of a background, because obviously we were talking about this before the whole CAS appeal and everything. Who was going to be dropped from the 11 to get Paolo into the team? So I decided to put out the poll basically asking who would you drop. And the options were Andre Carrillo, Edison Flores, Jefferson Farfan, or other. Basically respond with whoever you want to see. And out of 120 votes, 40% of people, the overwhelming majority actually, picked Andre Carrillo to be replaced. Other was the next reply. People suggested Cueva, Yotun, a bunch of different players who I think will not be dropped. There's probably almost zero chance of those guys getting dropped from the 11. a decent amount of people said Flores or Farfan, but I think it was a pretty small amount given that it was only 120 people, and I think maybe 18% each voted for either of those options. The Carrillo thing to me is interesting because I know that he divides opinion a lot. I mean, we have a panelist on here who has a differing opinion. But I think the one reason why, or at least a couple reasons why Carrillo should stay in the 11 and has stayed in the 11 no matter what his club form has been, he offers a different change of pace. He offers more technique on the wings, and he is a real threat on counterattacks. Remember back to the qualifier against Argentina when he wasn't available and how Peru could not effectively counterattack without him. Now, there was obviously a lot at play. They were playing at La Bombonera. Argentina was desperate. They needed a win. You couldn't really risk just, going all out kamikaze counterattacking. But they definitely did suffer a little bit with the attacking play. In fact, they were quite toothless throughout that game. So that, to me, is the reason why you can't drop him. And that is probably the reason why, I believe anyways, Gareca keeps him in the 11, because even though his end product isn't great, we all know that, those odd moments that he does have, like against Croatia when he does score, the cross that he delivered against Uruguay that set up Flores' goal, the winning goal, that's the reason why I think he stays in the 11 and why he should stay in the 11. I don't know what you guys think. I know maybe where Christopher might stand, but what do you guys think about this?
Well, I'll give my full opinion once and for all, I guess. So first of all, Carrillo, I think, needs to stay because no one has the pace that he has in this 11. So maybe he's a player that he's lazy, yes, but on form he's going to be any fullback in the world. I mean, there's no stopping him when he's on form. What's the problem is his end product, but I think that his crossing is not that bad. I think it's just his finishing that's terrible, and maybe his final pass is a bit iffy, but I think that I prefer Carrillo. Farfan is more for a slower tiki-taka game, while Carrillo has been suited to this system for a long time, and Farfan just doesn't have the pace and stamina to last the full 90 minutes anymore. Unfortunately, maybe not for Peru. I don't know how it's going to look with Team Moscow, but he's not lasted the full 90 minutes in a while, and for Peru. So I think Farfan is one. Then you have Cueva, who I don't think you should drop either because Farfan scores more than Cueva. He has better first touch play, but he's not as dynamic. I mean, he doesn't drive us forward as much as Cueva does. He's kind of more off the ball than whereas Cueva, he has the ball and he's going to run up the defense, and then you're going to intimidate them. And then there is Flores, who a lot of people are suggesting is drop. Sure, he's not as impactful as the other two, but Flores kind of shows up out of the blue and just scores. So, I guess Farfan can do that too, but, what are you replacing him? You put Farfan on the left where it's not going to perform to his max. So why are we suggesting Flores? Maybe you could always move Cueva to the left, but I prefer him as a 10 or as a 6, personally. So I think that the one logical option, and this kind of goes to Alan Gamara's question the other day, I think Farfan should go to the bench. And then if you really need a game changer, put him on. And then you have a player that's a quality and put it as game changer. So luckily we have 2 friendlies to test this out. Guerrero is the leader of the team, and he's the best player on the team, of course. So we'll see how he does. I also don't get these suggestions to replace Yotun. We have played with one midfield against New Zealand, but it's against New Zealand, guys. We're not going to play like that against Denmark. We had our midfield overrun against New Zealand in that game. Yeah. Why? Because we had one midfielder. So you're not going to do that against Denmark, a nation that's quite good at football, France, a nation that's really good at football, and Australia, who have abundance of midfielders. Who, if you leave one midfielder, they're just going to run over you. So you can't do that against those nations. So Tapia and Yotun have to be the 2 forwards. And besides, Yotun's link-up play with Guerrero is really good as well. So you really don't want to drop any of those 2. If you're going to drop Yotun, then at least put another midfielder. Even Flores is a 6. I've ranted about that, but if you're going to drop one of them, you're going to have another midfielder. I'm not having that we're playing with this one midfield nonsense. That's not what I think. Christopher, what are your opinion?
Well, I was talking to Peter pre-podcast about this. I was telling him that I actually stared at the screen for about 5 minutes trying to make a decision on which one of those I wanted to pick. And, letting our imaginations run wild here. Well, obviously we know that Gareca does not usually change his starting 11 too much. He's not very drastic with his changes. But what if we dropped the defender? What if we only played with three in back? That way we cleared some more room up front, right? And he talked. Well, we were talking about this, and I mean, I don't think it would be that crazy of an idea. I mean, and obviously, I don't think Gareca's going to do it, but it would be I think could be a possibility that if we don't want to drop neither Carrillo nor Farfan, and if we want to add Paolo, then I don't know, maybe dropping Ramos. I mean, because like Tapia and Yotun have played defensive positions in the past in their clubs, so I don't think that they would be. I mean, they have creative functions, but at the same time, I think they would be pretty comfortable coming back and helping out when needed. If we kind of oversaturated that midfield and left Paolo all the way up front, then I think that Peru would not suffer if we went down to only having three defenders, right? Obviously, we need a goalie, so we're not going to get rid of the goalie. But just jokingly, of course. But if of course we're talking about more realistic options, then I can see Carrillo coming off to make some room for Paolo. But I can also see that the other option that we had been talking about, where Farfan is kind of our super sub. We talked about this last podcast too. We need a super sub. Well, Farfan could be our super sub, and at the same time, I think it would be interesting to see Farfan and Guerrero playing together. They really haven't had the chance to do that much. And I remember, before Peredo passed away, he said, like these two they're BFFs, they have played forever together since they were like 14. So why not give them a chance to play together and see what they can do? I mean, it's kind of like a dream come true, right? I think it'd be beautiful to see him playing in the World Cup together. So, maybe they get a few minutes, but it would be nice to also see him start. So to me, those are the realistic options. Probably dropping Farfan or dropping Carrillo. I think Farfan has played in that position before, and I think he feels comfortable with it. Even though Carrillo might be a better option. That's kind of what I see.
Actually, Christopher, you gave me a really good segue because I tweeted out a photo on my personal account of Farfan and Guerrero together in an Alianza team picture, and then side by side with them in the present day with the national team, and basically saying like, "Oh, isn't this awesome?" Through thick and thin, they're going to the World Cup together. It's amazing. I mean, even if they don't play together, it's a really cool story. Because who in their wildest dreams would have thought that them as teenagers, like 15 years later, are representing Peru in their first World Cup in 36 years. It really is the stuff of legends. In terms of the 3-5-2 suggestion or just the three at the back suggestion, like Peru has the personnel to do it. The problem is they haven't played in that system in any game.
Yeah, it's a huge gamble.
That's the problem, right? It is a huge gamble, and I don't think Gareca is going to turn to that in a World Cup. I mean, maybe in an emergency situation, if they're trying to bunker down and absorb pressure and then counterattack, yes, that could work. But in terms of starting from the off, I don't think it's possible. That might be something to look at though for the next cycle, whoever the next coach happens to be, because I think they have some Pauli coming in if he's fired by Argentina, finally making amends 11 years later, coaching Peru. But it will be an idea for the next cycle, I think. Certainly would be a decent idea on Flores, because I wanted to mention it when Brian was speaking about it. Completely agreed on those points that I don't think you can drop him. Has he looked, as impressive? No, because here's the thing. When a player is scoring and he's in, this fantastic form, the goals almost, push him up on a pedestal. When he's not scoring, everybody just assumes, nope, he's not doing anything. He's not lively, doing nothing. The Scotland game, the first half, almost all of Peru's good chances were generated through him. You also have to factor in he was playing in about 4 different roles throughout that game, so there was no consistency whatsoever with him. And his best runs of form happened to coincide with Paolo Guerrero in the 11. So I think having that striker who can hold up the ball more, who's a much more commanding presence, who's going to stretch defenses, because you can't just put one defender on him. You sometimes have to put two defenders on him. I think Flores can thrive. And I think that the concerns over him are a little bit drastic because don't forget too, this is a 23-year-old, 24-year-old player who's only just moved to Europe like a little more than a year ago. He also dealt with niggling injuries at Aalborg. Didn't really get a consistent run of games until I think like late March, early April. So there's also that to consider. There are a bunch of different factors. So long story short, Flores is fine. I think he'll be a lot better with Paolo in the 11. And I don't think people should worry about him too much because he is a fantastic player, and I think he'll show that soon.
No, for sure. I think, like I said, I personally want Farfan on the bench. I mean, I said before in the last pod to Albert's question that only world-class nations have game changers on the bench, like Brazil, Germany, Spain. Not even Argentina has one. So if you really want a game changer, have Farfan on the bench. I mean, that's the only game changer that our nation's going to have in probably a long time. So I think that he's got to be the game changer for sure. I'm not sure what you guys think.
Well, go ahead.
No, Christopher, go ahead. Go for it. Got nothing to say.
Okay, well, because I was kind of gonna take the conversation somewhere else. It's just that as Peter was talking about that relationship between Flores and Paolo, kind of the skinnier, short kid that kind of sneaks by, and then having that commanding presence that is Paolo Guerrero up front, and how they kind of create that synergy. It actually reminded me of the 2011 Copa America and the relationship between Paolo and William Chiroque.
Oh my God!
I don't know if you guys remember that at all. Obviously, William Chiroque, just like my goodness, my like honestly, I love Chiroque, but anyways, but it was interesting, It's like Chiroque was this little like 100 pounds, like 5 feet 0 inches tall, little guy, and Paolo is this young, huge, forward. And they played so well together, and they played so well together. There was just that magic, especially during that tournament or the third place match against Venezuela, and how well they played off each other. It's, I wonder if somehow Flores is our modern Chiroque.
Yes.
Maybe there is something there that somehow clicks between a really tall guy and a really short dude, and who knows? But anyways, I'm sorry that I just ranted on about something completely unrelated, but that's what came to mind.
Well, that's from the past, Christopher.
Yeah, for sure.
Chiroque is still playing, incredibly enough. He's playing for Atletico Grau right now.
Really?
Yes,
really?
Wow.
So I'm going to go follow him.
He's the next Herman Carti now.
Johan Fano.
Okay, so I guess we can talk about the Saudi Arabia game before we end the pod. We're going to end it a little shorter than usual. And I just want your overall predictions firstly. I'm going for 2-1, and I'll give my reasons after you guys.
Okay.
2-1 win, I should mention.
Yeah, of course. I will go Peru winning. I'm gonna go 3-1 just to be different. I think Peru concedes this time because I think Saudi Arabia will present much more of a threat than Scotland and New Zealand did. They're very lethal out wide, as I mentioned on the last show, so I think that'll come into play a little bit. But Peru should still be able to pick up a win.
And you, Christopher?
Well, I think that Peru does well when they are the underdogs in the field. I think especially like against Croatia, we really kicked it into fifth gear and we went hard, and we won 2-0. And then I remember the match against Iceland where we're thinking, oh well, Iceland is a much easier team than Croatia, and then we conceded a goal, and it kind of took Peru a second to pick up that pace in the second half and come back and win that game. But I don't know. I kind of see there's something similar happening this time around. So I think I'm going to go with a 2-1. I mean, I think Peru's still going to win, but obviously they don't have that motivation to go out, when they know that they're going against a team that is, at least on paper, inferior to them.
I think I also agree with Christopher that we are better as underdogs, but I also wanted to mention that Saudi Arabia are the last team that are going to bunker down. I know you didn't say that, Christopher, but I'm just saying that Saudi Arabia are not going to bunker down. People are telling me that they are. They're not. I've seen Saudi Arabia, and they're a team that is not suited to start bunkering down. They're a team that's suited to attack the wings. They're very technical. They're fast paced. They're like any other Arabic side there are. They're basically just very fast paced and very technical. So I can't see them. I can't see them bunkering down. Definitely not, because they're not the side to do that. If they do, I'll be very surprised, because I saw them in the qualifiers a bit. They're actually pretty good. They're not as bad as people are making them out to be. I wouldn't say they're the second worst side in the tournament. I would say Panama, Tunisia are worse, and maybe even Russia. But we'll see that on the first match day.
Yes.
So I think that Saudi Arabia are a decent side. I think they'll score one, but I think Peru will win pretty comfortably overall. I think that they'll win. They'll score the first 2 goals, and then the last goal is going to be a bit of a consolation. But I don't think they're going to make it. Maybe I'm contradicting myself, but I don't think they'll make it that easy either. So I think that Peru won't. I don't know. I'm just contradicting myself now, but I think that we will win. That's what I'm going to say. So.
One possible factor in this, and the projected 11s are now starting to come out. It looks like Paolo might actually end up starting.
Yeah.
And the other changes would be Santa Maria in for Rodriguez and Casada in for Carvalho. Those would be the 3 different changes from the Scotland game. I think Peru is going to be really, really motivated, and they're going to play it at a completely different level, which I think might come into play here. You also have to factor in that Paolo is going to be like a caged tiger who's just been released. And he's going to go absolutely insane. So yeah. I think you might see that a little bit in the Saudi Arabia game, but I think they might be a little bit too ambitious, I think, for lack of a better term, and that might leave them susceptible to conceding and maybe being under a little bit of pressure. Yeah,
for sure. I think that I think that in particular Rodriguez. I mean, Rodriguez is great at anticipating, but he's better with slower players. Like, I think Saudi Arabia has very fast forwards, and I think that might give him to struggle a little bit, just the pace of the game. But that's it. I mean, I still think he will be fine personally. Yeah. But they say that he might not even start. They say Santa Maria is the one who's probably going to start. So that's what I read.
Yeah, which is what I just said.
Yeah, I did not pay attention. Well, sorry.
Regardless of whether Paolo starts or he comes in, I really do hope that we need to take it easy. I'm trying to say that we need to take it easy, and that I think that he needs to play. I don't know if I want to see him play full 90 though. I think that he can pack a punch in about 15 minutes. So especially because he's been about a month, right? I'm scared. I want to be really cautious with Paolo. Let's start him off easy, and then maybe next game he can play the 90, or maybe even against Denmark we'll let him play the 90, and Sweden, put him in 1/2 or something. But he needs some action for sure. But I'm also hesitant because I want to save him for the best.
Yeah, I think Gareca is like, I'm actually surprised he's starting. I thought for sure he was going to come off the bench and play 30 minutes and then maybe get 60 in the Sweden friendly and then end up starting for the Denmark game. Like, that's what I thought the plan was. Yeah. So I think maybe he might, because he's only been out like 2-3 weeks since the last time he played, which was against Chapecoense in the middle of May. Maybe, he looked at his fitness and training and thought, okay, maybe he can go 60, and then Farfan will come on for the last 30, or Roy Diaz will come on for the last 30 and alleviate the pressure. I don't think he'll go 90, though. Gareca is definitely going to be cautious.
Yeah, I don't want to be the pessimistic one here, but it will be absolute scenes if he gets injured. I really don't want to be the pessimistic guy here, but we after the whole fiasco, he cannot get injured, because then there'll be a whole controversy, and we just don't want that. Thankfully, he's not very injury prone, and he's very strong, so I don't think it's going to happen, and I hope it doesn't happen either. But if it does happen, there's going to be controversy.
But for sure, Paolo's going to be like a caged tiger. He's going to be like an uncaged tigrillo.
Anyways, he's proud of that one.
Making amends for the embarrassment from Wednesday.
Okay, so I think we recorded a good 40 minutes, and there's not much else to discuss. I mean, there's some league stuff we want to discuss, but this is an emergency pod, so those we can discuss after if there's room for it. So we're gonna end the pod here. So my name is Brian Birdie, and I am B_Bertie98 on Twitter. Christopher.
I'm Christopher Vizcardo. My Twitter handle is VIZ_FC.
And Peter.
As always, at Galindo PW, follow the show at Peru Waltz, and don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes and SoundCloud as well as YouTube too.
So thank you for listening, and we are going to sign off.